we have hit the end of 2024, leading into 2025, which means it's list season, baby. We have a ton of things coming up, end of the year list, and we're starting with the top 10 most anticipated films of 2025. So let's get into it. So this was a bit of a tricky one to put together because in previous years, I had one definitive film that I knew would be number one. And in 2025, there's a bunch of things that I'm excited about, but it was really tough to distinguish a number one clear-cut frontrunner for my most anticipated of the year. This list might be a little bit unconventional in terms of films that are coming out in 2025 due to just some of my preferences in film. So expect something a little bit different than big blockbuster movies, even though there are a couple of those in here. Let's get started with the honorable mentions, shall we? So I have a few here, and I'm going to quickly list them off, starting with the drama starring Robert Pattinson and Zendaya, directed by Christopher Borgli, director of Dream Scenario. I have no idea what this is going to be, but that cast, that director, it's going to be fascinating, it's going to be quirky, and I'm interested to see it. Next, we have Mother Mary, which we've only seen one still for. This is the latest film from David Lowery, director of The Green Knight, which is one of my favorite movies ever. And while he can be a little bit inconsistent at times, this does have the look of something that might be one of his more quality passion projects. I mean, that picture of Anne Hathaway, that costume design, it does look very impressive. Next, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. I mean, what more is there to say? Guillermo del Toro is the master of crafting amazing looking monsters, and now he is working with Frankenstein's monster, one of the most iconic monsters ever. The one still that has come out, the look of that production design looks phenomenal, and I'm really excited to check that one out. Another film that I think will fly under a lot of people's radars and is releasing at this year's Sundance Film Festival is The Legend of Ochi. Now, from the poster, it looks like this movie could be kind of terrible, but the trailer released and it actually looked quite endearing about this cute little creature. This is an A24 indie film, this little adventure. It looks super charming, and I'm actually quite excited to see that one. Another honorable mention is The Smashing Machine. So we have two Safdie brothers splitting up and directing two different projects. This one is from Benny Safdie and stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. There's one still that has released. He looks completely unrecognizable. I can see it being an easy frontrunner for best makeup, and in the 2026 Oscars, it looks like The Rock is trying to do something a little bit more different and take acting a little bit more seriously. So I am actually quite interested in this project. Now, an absolute huge one that I can see being on the top of pretty much everyone's list is James Gunn's Superman movie. Now, I'm really burnt out of the superhero genre, and this starting some brand new multiverse universe, I'm just not that interested in this, but I'm fascinated enough in the character of Superman. I love DC's characters, and there is some curiosity there, so I just had to put this on the list. And then another one is Ari Aster's latest film, Eddington. This is said to be a Western, and as I tweeted when they first announced this movie, I don't think this is going to be just a Western. Ari Aster is a very unpredictable filmmaker. We kind of thought he would be going down the horror path after directing the absolute masterpiece Hereditary and the phenomenal Midsommar. And then he followed that up with Beau is Afraid, which was such a quirky movie. This could be anything. I have no idea, but I am excited, and the cast looks quite phenomenal. Now let's get into the top 10, starting with number 10. So at number 10, I have put down The Monkey, directed by Osgood Perkins. Now, if you look at the poster for this movie and see that it's a horror movie, you might think that it looks quite ridiculous, and I definitely thought that. And then I watched the trailer for this movie, and it seems like it's a lot more quality than what something like this poster would illustrate, with it looking like some kind of terrible Blumhouse horror. Osgood Perkins just directed Longlegs, which is probably my favorite horror movie of the year, and is something that you probably will see get mentioned at the 3rd Annual Kane Eddy Awards. I absolutely love the way that Osgood Perkins has directed horror, even with The Black Coat's Daughter, which was somewhat stale, but I still thought it was quite good. The Monkey looks like it's taking a lot of the stylistic choices that Longlegs had, building a lot of suspense and an eerie atmosphere with kind of a ridiculous horror villain. I'm very fascinated with this project. Stephen King adaptations are a little bit hit and miss, but I have faith in this one. At number 9, I have Knives Out 3, Wake Up Dead Man. I mean, we've seen the first two Knives Out movies. They're really tightly written and pretty great whodunit films from Rian Johnson. Once again, starring Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc. Just from the one still and the title, I'm guessing this one is going to be a little bit more darker and taking itself maybe a little bit more seriously than something like Glass Onion did. The first Knives Out remains my favorite, but I do think Rian Johnson has enough juice to make a really excellent whodunit here. I love the ensemble that have been cast here. Jeremy Renner is a pretty great actor when you look at some of his stuff outside of the MCU. Kaylee Spaney, who is one of my favorite up-and-coming actresses, who has done phenomenal work in Priscilla and Civil War and Alien Romulus. And then Josh O'Connor, who also had a breakout 2024 with Challenges and Lucky Mirror. I mean, this cast looks amazing. I love the fun of these movies, and just unraveling some of these tightly written mysteries is so much fun, and I cannot wait to do that again with Wake Up Dead Man. At number 8, I have The Battle of Bacton Cross, which isn't its official title yet, but this is the latest film from Paul Thomas Anderson, a really well-respected filmmaker. This is going to be his most expensive movie, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Any film starring Leo, I'm usually on board for, because he is very picky about his projects and usually has some involvement creatively. And that tends to be a good thing, his collaboration with really highly renowned directors, and he's just adding another one to his list here. Now, you might think I'm crazy, but just a real hot take here, I'm not a huge fan of Paul Thomas Anderson's work, which is why this is a little bit lower on my list. I've seen a lot of his stuff, and I really want to be won over. The only film that I've truly loved from Paul Thomas Anderson has been Boogie Nights, and I keep watching his movies because I desperately want to be won over and really get what everyone else says about this highly acclaimed and respected filmmaker. I'm hoping that this film will manage to do that for me. Leonardo DiCaprio in that lead role is definitely compelling. I don't know too much about what this movie is going to be yet. It's very tightly under wraps, but I'm on board for this movie. At 7, a really huge project, one that I think a lot of people are quite excited for, Fantastic Four: First Steps. Now, I'm not usually a big fan of the MCU, especially a lot of what they've done lately. It's been very hit or miss. There have been some outstanding projects in there. This film, from what I'm hearing and just some of the little snippets of footage that we've gotten with test footage and little leaks here and there, this film looks like a little bit of a departure from the typical MCU style, really carrying over a really retro 50s era family movie within the superhero genre. This cast look fantastic. I think Pedro Pascal has been going from strength to strength. Vanessa Kirby has provided excellent work. I mean, we have Cousin from The Bear. We have Joseph Quinn as well, who has also done quite outstanding work over the past year. I think this film is going to be a little bit different, a little bit more interesting within the MCU, and that's what I'm looking for within the superhero genre. I'm very tired of seeing the same old thing. And I'm really hoping and praying that this film is a little bit of a departure from that and embraces a different kind of tone and narrative structure that's not trying to set up multiple movies, but is something that is quite self-contained and quite interesting. I do think this is a key film in the MCU and its success in the future, so I'm sure they will be setting up some things here and there. But overall, it does look like quite an interesting film with a score that sounds really great. I mean, there's just so much about this to be excited about. At number 6, I have Spike Lee's new film Highest to Lowest, which is a remake of Akira Kurosawa's High and Low, which is an adaptation of Shakespeare's High and Low. Now, Spike Lee has had a pretty divisive record with a previous remake he did with Oldboy. I'm hoping for the best here. This is him reuniting with Denzel Washington. These are two key collaborators that bring out the best in one another, and that is what I am hoping for here. There are some negative little things here and there. I have heard from someone that has seen a test screening of this movie that this is not a great movie at all, but I still hold out faith. I love Spike Lee's work. I think his last two films, Black Klansman and Da 5 Bloods, were phenomenal, and movies that I have rewatched quite a few times. It was so powerful, such an interesting filmmaker with so much to say, and I'm hoping he can apply that to this Shakespeare adaptation, putting his own spin on things. He's a filmmaker that thinks outside the box, and I hope he can do that here and provide some of the stuff that we see in more of his masterful films, rather than the ones that he's made that have been a little bit of a mess. At 5, I have the film from the other Safdie brother, Josh Safdie, and that is Marty Supreme, starring Timothée Chalamet as Marty Reisman, who is a real famous table tennis player. I have heard that this film takes a more fictional approach with this person and making some changes here and there from some of the league set shots that we've seen, and a little bit of the scenes here and there displaying some of Timothée Chalamet's performance here. I'm very on board for this. I think it is going to be a very energetic and stressful movie, similar to something like Uncut Gems, which was phenomenal in that regard. I trust Josh Safdie here. This is said to be A24's most expensive movie as well. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be quite unique, and I am very optimistic about this cast and the talent behind this movie. Even if this is said to go into some pretty wacky directions, I'm on board for that. As long as it's unique and does something a little bit different within the biopic genre, I'm all for that. And this film gets me more and more interested the more I see about it and the more I hear from it. At 4, I had to put it on here, Avatar, Fire and Ash. James Cameron knows what he's doing, man. I love the first and second Avatar. They are both technical achievements and just so wonderful to watch. And they're great movies to test a brand new TV and display as much power as you can from a TV. James Cameron is obviously a highly influential filmmaker. I mean, I had not heard about releasing a movie in 3D for so long until he released The Way of Water, and then it became a fad again, kind of reminding me of what he did with the first Avatar and really bringing in new technology and innovative filmmaking. Yes, people criticize the narratives to these films, and that's fine, I guess, but I am someone who quite enjoys the narratives. I enjoy these characters, and I'm on board for the journey. I'm really excited to see more of Pandora. It's going to be interesting. I do think it could be a make or break point in this series with this film, as we're now going from the water tribe to the fire tribe. It's like, are we just going to see all the different elements? It does seem like it could get into a bit of a funk if it keeps doing that. But who knows? James Cameron is a pretty interesting and inventive filmmaker, and I'm sure what he has got cooked up with this movie is going to be quite the spectacle. I'm ready to go back to Pandora once again. At number 3, even though I know absolutely nothing about it, apart from the fact that it's an espionage movie and it has quite the cast once again, I have The Phoenician Scheme, which is Wes Anderson's latest film that he has wrapped up filming. It is very 50-50 whether this movie will actually release in 2025, but I have a suspicion that it will. Wes Anderson does turn around films quite quickly, and the release dates between many of his films are only, 2 or so years. I absolutely adore Wes Anderson. He's one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, and every single movie that releases is a big deal for me, and this will be no different. I have adored so much of his work, even some of his more divisive stuff that he has done in the past few years. The French Dispatch and Asteroid City are some of my favorites from his filmography, especially Asteroid City, which was so complex and interesting. And once again, he utilizes his signature style in so many purposeful ways. And I am so ready to see how he's going to apply that in the espionage genre. The cast is stacked. I mean, a lot of the typical Wes Anderson cast is there. And then you're adding someone like Michael Cera into this, who I think is a perfect match with the style of filmmaking that Wes Anderson has and that quirky dialogue that he writes. This film, I pretty much know, is going to be pretty special to me and probably one of the best of the year. I am that confident in what Wes Anderson can do in terms of impressing me with his filmmaking. And I have no doubts that the Phoenician scheme will be a really interesting project. At number 2, I have a movie that was on my most anticipated list last year, a film that has been consistently getting delayed to the point where it has gotten so frustrating. We thought it was going to come out in February and then it got delayed again to April. I'm talking about Bong Joon-ho's next film, Mickey 17, starring Robert Pattinson. Look, Bong is a fantastic filmmaker and he has been on a hot streak with his last film, Parasite, just dominating at the Academy Awards and really becoming a huge push to international cinema in a way that I think a lot of people weren't expecting. And now, I'm not really thinking that Mickey 17 is going to become as significant as what Parasite was, but I am expecting a really fun and interesting movie. The trailer looks fantastic. It looks like it's filled with this interesting, quirky humor. Robert Pattinson is putting on another funny voice. You've got this great cast, Toni Collette, Stephen Yeun. It's looking to be so interesting. And while his Korean films tend to be a little bit more put together and probably more accomplished than his English films, I still love his English films. I mean, Snowpiercer was phenomenal. I love Okja. And I really have no reason to doubt Bong Joon-ho. I've seen so much of his work and I've loved and adored so much of it that I have no doubts that Mickey 17 will impress me, even if this seems a little bit different to what we're used to seeing from Bong. And I am actually expecting some of those tendencies to come out when we actually see the film. For example, the trailer has a very light-hearted tone. I do think there's going to be some dark twist somewhere in that movie because his films are riddled with that. And I'm interested to see what that could potentially become and how he is going to work within this type of sci-fi in a way that he's never done before. It just seems so interesting to me. I can't wait to see what Bong Joon-ho has cooked up here. And at number 1, I honestly didn't have this at number 1 until I literally put this list together, and that is F1, the new film coming out in 2025 from Joseph Kosinski, the director of Top Gun Maverick. Obviously, that was a fantastic film with real practical filmmaking, actually putting these characters in jets, and something similar is happening here, but in an F1 car. But that's not the one only thing that is selling me on this movie. It is an interesting element to it and something that is nice to see, practical filmmaking. I also love Brad Pitt's work as an actor, so that draws me to this movie as well. It has been said that I think this is the most expensive movie ever made, which is crazy. None of that matters. Watching the trailer, it does carry a lot of vibes from something like Moneyball, which is one of my favorite movies of all time and the absolute gold standard within the sporting genre. I absolutely adore racing movies. It's a real soft spot of mine. It's something that I have both studied in a sense in university, really looking at something like Gran Turismo and its effectiveness in motorsport. I am so fascinated in the strategy of racing, and it is something that I would like to take up for real next year. So just seeing a film tackle that kind of sport, which is something that we slowly seeing more of over the years, with something like Ford v Ferrari being so fun to watch, and we're slowly getting more and more of those types of movies, and I'm all here for it. They're just the type of movies that really work for me, and that trailer hit a lot of the beats that get me so excited to see yet again another quality racing movie. I'm all for it. And those are my top 10 most anticipated films of 2025. I'd love to hear your list. I think 2025 is going to be a cracker in terms of the amount of releases coming out. I think there's so much stuff to be excited about. There were quite a few films that I cut from this list that I wanted to include, but it was just going to go on and on and on, and I'd be just saying the same thing over and over again. But those are my 10 with some honorable mentions. You let me know what movies you're excited for in 2025, because there might be something that might have slipped under my radar that I'd love to put on my watch list. And I'm hoping that this list has given you some things that you can look forward to in 2025. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Stay tuned. We have so many more lists coming, like my worst of the year, and of course the 3rd Annual Kane Eddy Awards, my premiere show on this channel. It is going to be a gargantuan task to put that video together, but I'm so excited and ready for it. I still have that poll up of the People's Choice Award, where you get to vote for your favorite movie of 2024, and that award will be announced at the 3rd Annual Kane Eddy Awards. Put your votes in. The link is down below. Do it before it closes and have your say. Anyway, that's my ranting done. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.